You're listening to Thunder and Lightning on SuperTalk Mississippi, covering Mississippi State sports like nobody else. With Sports Talk Mississippi's Brian Hadad and Robbie Faulk of On3 Sports. Now get ready for Thunder and Lightning.
This is Thunder and Lightning here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Brian Hadad and Robbie Faulk here with you on a Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us here at supertalk.fm or wherever it is that you get podcasts from. Appreciate you guys out there, our great listeners, especially our servicemen and women out there taking care of us. I want to thank our sponsors over at Strange Brew Coffee House and Churn and Spoon Ice Cream. Start your day the right way with a trip to the drive-thru over at Strange Brew Coffee House here in Starkville or at Brupolo over in Tupelo. Be a little weird, Robbie, if Brupolo was in Point.
It would be a little weird.
Not West Point.
Not North Point.
Not South Point.
Just Point.
Not East Point. Just Point. God, that finger is long. That's a long phalange. And that doesn't help. Wherever you are in our great state, you can enjoy Strange Brew coffee each and every morning. Even if you're a person who wants 6 espresso shots in your coffee, you can get that at strangebrewcoffeehouse.com. I'm still that's psychopathic behavior by Jeff Lebby. I just want to point that out. The Mississippi Beef Council wants to remind you that beef, it is what's for dinner. Beef was what was for dinner for Robbie Faulk and Brian Hadad last night.
Oh my God, it was.
Oh man. We will tell tales of that dinner. But any dinner can be great when you have beef as the star of the show. So grill up a steak this weekend, or if you're looking for weeknight meals, beef can always be the ingredient that puts it over the top. If you need recipes, go to msbeef.org. Beef, it's what's for dinner, thanks to our friends at the Mississippi Beef Council. College Corner, collegecornerstore.com is the place to find the maroon and white merchandise that you're looking for. You are looking for it. You need to get some new gear. You need the interlocking, the state script, the M over S. It's all right there for you at College Corner. 2 locations in the Jackson area. Original by Fleet Feet, followed by the Half Shell, or you can shop online at collegecornerstore.com. Restaurant Tyler is Starkville's flagship restaurant for lunch, dinner, or Sunday brunch. The best meal in town is at Restaurant Tyler. I was on with my friend Drew DeArmond from 97.7 in Huntsville today, and he's like, hey, they gave us these Restaurant Tyler hot sauces in our goodie bags. I was like, is this good hot sauce? I was like, it's great. It's like, that's what some of the media got that. Some.
It was available for you as well.
I did not get a goodie bag, but that's fine. That's neither here nor there. And they were both saying, when we come to Starkville because of your show, we go to Restaurant Tyler. I was like, wow, another satisfied customer. And you can be the next one. If you want to have a great meal, not a good meal, a great meal, place to go is Restaurant Tyler. Priority One Bank has 16 locations to serve you throughout central Mississippi. Let PriorityOneBank.com be your guide to not only show you how they're going to help you invest and manage your money, but more importantly, how they're going to help you prepare for your future. And now more than ever, you have questions about your money, you need answers, you need them on your schedule. You need a bank that provides the level of service that you're only going to get at Priority One Bank. Let Priority One Bank make you their priority. I will apologize at the beginning of this because if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to just assume that our audio quality is not as good as it normally is. I am obviously here at the Omnia Hotel after day 3 of SEC Media Days. Robbie is in his hotel as well. We wanted to put together a podcast for you guys. We got a lot to talk about. So again, if you're listening to this podcast, the audio may not be where you want it to be. If you're watching it and you see, okay, well, they're in a hotel room. It's just,
and you might hear the Atlanta ambiance, which is a Dodge sports car that's revving up its pipes outside.
Yeah, could hear that.
Among other things. Who knows?
So we'll see how it goes for us. All right. Today was the Mississippi State's day at the podium for SEC Media Days. I got to say, we make all our jokes about Lebby. And I know at the podium in the big room, he was his normal coach speak self. I would encourage a lot of you guys to listen to the Sports Talk Mississippi podcast and listen to my interview with Jeff Lebby. I thought that was kind of the most personality show. Now, maybe it was because I was the first guy to get to him today, and he was already tired of talking by the time he got to the main room. Maybe it's that 6-shot espresso he was drinking. I don't know what the answer is, but I felt a little bit more from him than I normally do. Got a chance to talk to Brennan Thompson. Very impressive kid who I did not know anything about prior to today.
Yeah, he's super impressive.
Yeah, Isaac Smith knew what I was going to get there, and he delivered. Blake Shapen, you can feel Shapen kind of chomping at the bit to get back on the field. He's ready to play. He would be willing to play the season starting this weekend. So I'll ask you the question that that's the staple of SEC media days. You all right there?
I just had a message come through. Sorry.
Yeah. It's like a Peter Gabriel video. Uh, what did you
Sledgehammer.
what did you learn today at SEC media days?
What did I learn? Did I really learn anything? I don't know.
That's the question.
Um, you know, I feel like this team has a little bit of a quiet confidence to it. I'm not saying that they're going to come out and shock the world or anything, but they do seem to be a little more organized, a little more together than last year's team.
Mhm.
And I think that's essentially what Jeff Lebby is doing here by keeping these coaches together. We discussed the coaching staff situation and how it was kind of strange that it didn't make more changes, but I think I understand a little bit of what Jeff Lebby's doing here, and I'm not saying it's the correct thing to do. I'm just saying I understand it.
Yeah.
I think that he wants consistency within his program. I think he wants to have guys familiar with and not having all this coaching turnover, and that's all Mississippi State has done for the last 3 years is change coaches and change rosters, and there just has been no consistency. I mean, with the players or anything. So I think what they're trying to do is, this is year two, and there's more familiarity with this team and this staff than there was last year when they were getting to know each other, things like that. The players are super comfortable with Jeff Lebby. That this is a really close team, I can tell. Um, sorry. And I think there's a lot of leadership on this team where that was kind of lacking last year. I think last year we saw three or four guys that you would perhaps call leaders. Isaac Smith was one of those who had done nothing prior to the season.
Yeah.
He played a little bit as a freshman, but you're asking that guy to be one of your leaders. One of the guys that you took to media days was sitting at the end of the bench, hardly playing. So I think these three are traditional leaders, guys that are going to be a big part of things. And I don't think they're the only ones. I think there's a lot of guys that can be leaders on this team. And that's why I think the mindset's changed a little bit. That they were much more confident, I felt like, than what we saw from them last year. And not in a cocky way. It was a business-like kind of way from them. And I still think it's going to be a struggle with this schedule that they have, but I think this is going to be a team that has, it's stuffed together a little bit this year, and we'll see where that leads them.
When I look at this team, and I talked about baseball this way, right? Where I was like, I don't want to make an overly homer prediction, but when you have media day, I feel like those tendencies come out, and you're like, well, maybe they could do this, maybe they could do that. You mentioned the schedule, and that's something that I didn't have to bring it up to anybody I did an interview with today. They all were ahead of the curve, and they're like, man, this schedule for Mississippi State is absolutely brutal. I've never seen one like this. And I'm just like, yeah, it's not going to be easy. I mean, breaking it down to the point where, they have 7 home games, and the only one that is an absolute gimme is Alcorn. And then you have Northern Illinois as the next easiest one. But goodness, they beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame last year. Then I mean, if you're ranking in terms of, just easiness, I think Tennessee would be next. Arizona State, Ole Miss, then Georgia and Texas. That's going to be that would be tough for a really good team to navigate.
Yeah.
If you gave, I think if you gave Georgia Mississippi State's schedule and told them, okay, but instead of playing yourself, you have to play Alabama, which would be about the equivalent, right? Or had to play LSU. I mean, they would feel really good if they were 10-2 on that schedule. They would feel really good, maybe even about 9-3 on that schedule. And so now you get this Mississippi State team who's not, is not as talented as those teams are. So mindset's going to play a large role. And I talked about that on Thunder and Lightning Live that, you have to at least start with mindset. Like you can't just come out to there and be down from day one. You've got to at least believe you can win. Otherwise, you have no shot. And I got that impression at least. And from Lebby, quiet confidence is such a cliched thing. But one of the questions I asked him was, how early in spring did you realize, hey, this group is much better than it was a year ago? And he said, first day. He said it was even before the spring. It was just working out with him in the December and January before we even got to spring practice. I was like, I knew that I had enough SEC bodies. I had enough guys who could play at this level on the roster. Now, are they the most talented team? No, there's no getting around that fact. But
They're getting more talented.
They're getting more talented, and you know, there's been a lot of debate about some guys like Malik Sela and Jure Bledsoe and the guy from Auburn. Was it Darian Brown? Is that his name?
Aaron Reed.
Darian Reed, yeah. And the one side of the coin is, hey, these guys are busts. They've been in college. They're away from high school. You can't rely on their recruiting profile. That's the side I tend to agree with. I'll be honest with you. But there is the other side of that coin. As much as we like to fight against Sotek's dog, there is another side of the coin where they just weren't in the right situation, and now that they come to Mississippi State, they are. Now that is unlikely, but it's a possibility. And if you want
But
to
you
play
also don't need them to be world beaters.
yeah, just bet Mississippi State. The word is better. Better doesn't mean you're good. Because when you're the worst defense in college football, which Mississippi State was pretty close to being last year, just being better means you might just be a below average or a mediocre defense. But that can be enough if you improve offensively to have success in this college football season. I thought Lebby, there's one thing with Mississippi State right now is there's just not a lot of interest outside of Mississippi State fans in this program, right? So you're not getting a lot of tough questions if you're Jeff Lebby. It's just you saw he got some questions about some former players. He got some softball questions from not from our media, from the out of state who just writing their columns. They have to do something on Mississippi State, so they ask a question and they go from there.
Well, and then some of them just want to get on SEC Network.
Some of them do,
Let's be honest.
So I thought that by and large, though, he handled things pretty well, and I thought his message was pretty consistent. That they know that it's going to be a challenge, and they have to embrace that. And for me, as we sit here on July 16th, as he mentioned in his interview with me, 15 days for the start of camp, that's really all I can ask for is for a team that is willing to look itself in the mirror and say, we know it's going to be tough, but we're ready for that.
Yeah, and that's what you want. I mean, I thought they approached it that way last year. I never felt like when you saw them on the field, they were scared to death.
Right.
That they went to Tennessee and they went to Georgia and Texas and Ole Miss, and I thought they played with effort. And
they never gave up last year, even in the Arkansas game. Even in the Arkansas game, Robbie, I never thought they gave up.
Yeah, they just didn't. They didn't execute. They were good.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think that the defense was so bad last year, I think it just kind of clouds our judgment a little bit on them that we just don't think they're going to be any good.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it was a massive overhaul for that defense.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they're going to be top 10 in the SEC even defensively, but I think this will be a much, much better defense. And I'm not saying that just because, you can't go anywhere else but up. I do think it'll be much better. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for. That first game against Southern Miss, that defense should be flying around, creating havoc, and they should look significantly better than Southern Miss. That's when you start to say, okay, I think they made some real improvements up front. And I still don't think that we truly, as bad as we've talked about this defense, I don't think we've truly grasped just how bad the personnel was up front in the front seven. It was unfathomably bad. And they've gotten now in a situation where, a guy like Kai McClendon could be down the depth chart a little bit. And
That, that would
that
be
he ended
great.
up being your top defensive tackle.
That would be fantastic for Mississippi State.
That would be a good thing for Mississippi State. It wouldn't be a great thing for Kai McClendon, but it would be a good thing for Mississippi
Well,
State.
even if you're fifth on the depth chart, Robbie, they're going to rotate. You're going to play a great number of snaps, you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's about all
They
you can
just didn't have any depth, man. Like,
Yeah.
and they didn't have depth at hardly any position. Like what Jeff Lebby, when he was telling us last year, we've got to get we've got to get better in the scout team. Like that kind of sounded like excuses to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start breaking it down, it isn't. It isn't excuses. They literally just did not have anything there to practice correctly. They couldn't practice the way that they wanted to. Injuries, lack of depth, um, things like that. I mean, Kedrick Bingley Jones was basically your top defensive tackle. And how many times have we talked about him this year?
Not very often, yeah.
Not very often. So I think that their defense should be significantly better, and um, they're excited to get out there and showcase that a little bit. And I think the offense is going to be better than we've been expecting too. One of the things that you asked what we learned today, one of the things that encouraged me a little bit is Brennan Thompson, Jeff Lebby, and Blake Shapen all raved about the wide receivers.
Yes, they did.
And I've been a little concerned. I'm not gonna lie. I've been a little concerned about the wide receivers,
Yeah.
about what that group looks like, because you lost Mario Craver, you lost Kevin Coleman. The good news about that is we didn't really know what to expect from the wide receivers last year coming into the season either. Kevin
Right.
Coleman had not done anything great at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Um,
Bakari was the most proven guy.
Akari was the most proven guy, and he was hurt, and everybody was kind of concerned about that. Craver, everybody's excited about him, but he was a true freshman. So hearing that Blake Shapen say this is the most talented wide receiver group I've been around, I just don't think he throws that around
Yeah.
that loosely.
Agreed.
I think that there's something to that. And Brennan Thompson was the same way. Talked about how talented that group is, and we know that the running backs are going to be good. I asked Jeff Lebby about the offensive line and if he thought that it was a group that he felt a lot better about than he did in the spring, and he said without a doubt that he felt better about that group. It sounds like Blake Steen has obviously been a guy that has emerged there for them. Blake Shapen, without even being asked about him, brought him up. And also Zach Owens. He brought up, when I asked about Blake about the offensive line and building those relationships, he brought up Blake Steen and Zach Owens, the kid from Colorado.
Can we please call him Flapjack? I mean, that's his name.
We will call him Flapjack.
We got Fluff and Flapjack.
Fluff and Flapjack. And I'm hoping that he goes down in history as another pork chop,
Yeah.
Pig.
Yeah.
And
Can't do that
the
with
like.
Fluff because that's his actual name, not a nickname.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we can include Fluff in there as well.
We can. We can if we want.
But we need Flapjack, Pig, and pork chop.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I'm hungry all of a sudden once again.
I am not. We just ate a big dinner. Yeah. So let's move into the rest of the show, and I want to do a little statistical exercise for you. I think it's kind of interesting. That's brought to you by our friends over at Two Brothers Smoked Meats in the heart of the Cotton District, the place to find the smoked Southern soul food that you are looking for, and the Older Brother right next door in the Cotton District, the place to find fancy sandwiches. A trip to Two Brothers, a trip to the Older Brother when you're in the Cotton District, it's just a must. Those are the best places to go. The Cotton District has got a lot of great places, and we like eating at all of them, but no more than Two Brothers and the Older Brother. Next time you're in Starkville, head to the Cotton District and enjoy a great meal at Two Brothers Smoke Meats and the Older Brother. Great products, great service. Every business likes to promise it to you. They deliver it to you at Advantage Business Systems. That's what they've been doing for 50 years.
That's it, brother.
If you need technology for your business, you need to call Advantage Business Systems. If you need a new copier, a new printer, new computers, whatever it is, if you want to get a product that you can believe in and a product that you know will get service if it goes wrong, somebody who can be on the phone with you immediately, somebody who can be at your place of business immediately to fix whatever's wrong. That's what you're going to get when you deal with Advantage Business Systems. 601-362-9192 or visit them online at absms.com. Find out how Advantage Business Systems will help your business do business. If you're going to be, you're right there. Did you just hiccup? Get the hiccups?
It was a burp.
Ah, it happens. If you are going to be in the market, as they say, for new Mississippi State gear, the place to go is Maroon & Co. Starkville's biggest and best selection of Mississippi State gear is at Maroon & Co. Everything maroon and white under one roof. All of the logos that you want. The state script, the interlocking, the M over S, stuff for your house, your car, your tailgate. It's all right there for you at Maroon & Co. And best of all, we can save you some money. Thunder 15 is the code to get 15% off regular price. Some exclusions do apply. Next time you're in Starkville and you need to head before you head to the game, you need to head to Maroon & Co. If you're going to be out on the lawn this weekend, what you need is some John Deere power at your back. The place to get that is in Saltillo, Mississippi, at our friends at Scruggs Farm, Lawn, and Garden. Everything you're looking for, John Deere. They've got commercial mowers, tractors, gators. It's all right there for you. And, of course, great deals and great financing to be had. If you are a person that is doing anything outside this weekend, you're working on your yard, you're a gardener, you've got some projects around the house, or if you just want to cook out, heck, you may want to get away from the house and get out on the water. It's all right there for you. Everything you need is at Scruggs Farm, Lawn, and Garden in Saltillo, Mississippi. So I've been saying this idea that if you can have a top half offense, if your defense can be 12th or 13th, that should be enough to go to a bowl game. So let's look at that from a season ago. Vanderbilt is a gigantic outlier in this. Vandy had the worst offense in the conference, and they had the 14th worst defense, the 14th best defense. So they were third from the bottom, right? But they still found their way, right? And I think part of that was just some improbable wins. And, the game against Alabama is, statistically, they're an outlier for sure. Mm-hmm. The worst defense in the conference, obviously, is Mississippi State, and State was 16th in the conference in defense, and then offensively, they were 13th. That's not good enough. That's not good enough to do what we're talking about here. Florida was in terms of total defense, was the second worst defense. Florida offensively, another outlier. So maybe I'm just awful in this, but they were the 11th or the 12th. Yeah, 14, 16, 15, 14. Yeah, 12th, the 12th best offense. Arkansas, 13th in defense, but second in total offense, which is I did not realize that. Now, part of that is skewed by the fact they had a 700-yard game against Mississippi State. But
I still can't believe that happened.
It did happen. But Arkansas is a really good example of what I'm talking about. They were not good defensively. They were good offensively, and it found a way to balance itself out. Texas A&M is another example of that. Not good defensively. They were 12th in total defense. Offensively, they were 8th in total offense. They are almost the picture-perfect example of what I'm talking about, what Mississippi State has to do this year. And then last on this list is going to be LSU. LSU was 11th in total defense. They were 15th in scoring defense. I know that because I keep rattling off that stat about them. So 11th in scoring defense, or in total defense, but 5th in total offense. That was good enough for them to win 9 games a year ago. So I think my hypothesis is correct. If State is a top half of the SEC, if they're 8th or better in offense, if they can just be between 12 and 14, and if you're in that range, it means that there's not a massive statistical outlier, which there was a season ago. In terms of total defense, State was 80 yards per game worse than Florida. Florida was, allow me to do some math here real quick, Robbie, 83 yards per game worse than Texas, who was first. So again, the gap between first and 15th is 3 yards wider than the gap between 15th and 16th. We've talked about it with scoring defense as well. In scoring defense, Mississippi State last, LSU second to last. The gap between LSU and Mississippi State, 15 and 16, was the same gap between LSU and Ole Miss at 1. That's when we talk about historically bad, that is what we are talking about. So you don't have to be 2018 or 1999 defensively. You don't have to be the best defense in the country. You just need to be better. You can still be bad. You just need to be better. That's I feel like that's the word for the season. Better. They just need to be better in everything that they do, and that's going to be enough to at least get fans back in the boat, to get yourself some momentum on the recruiting trail, to get yourself some momentum in college football, to get people looking. I got to tell you, like, there's just not, that's part of the thing we were just talking about. There's just not a lot of interest outside of Mississippi State fans in Mississippi State. When, a decade ago, people were interested in Mississippi State. Dan Mullen would get big crowds when he was at media days. Dak Prescott got big crowds going around at media days. People were interested in what was happening in Starkville. Now it's an afterthought. They were the fourth most popular team today, behind Florida and Oklahoma and of course Alabama. So that starts to turn around by winning games. And I hate to jump on the whole, we're not worried about any other games, we just want to be 1-0. But the season opener for Mississippi State is an absolutely crucial game, and it's not even just about winning. They need to win big. They need to put people's mind at ease, because if you win that game close, everybody just assumes you're going to lose to Arizona State. If you win that game by a large margin, everybody's going to look at it and go, okay, maybe this team has taken some steps forward, because a year ago they would not have won this game by a large margin. And so you just kind of go from there. So my hopes aren't up for Mississippi State. I'm not going to come out here in a couple of weeks when we do the media poll and say I think this is a 7 or 8 win team or anything like that. But I did get a whiff. I guess we smelled what Lebby was cooking on that one, because I did get the idea that internally they feel like they have a much, much better roster.
Yeah. Here's the thing about this team is that if the schedule wasn't what it was, I think that people would be more optimistic. I think the schedule has disheartened people because you feel like you're going to be better, maybe even much better than you were last year. But then you look at the SEC schedule and you're trying to find 6 wins. Back in the day, it 6 wins was kind of the floor. Like you knew that you were going to get the 4 non-conference wins, and you were probably going to win 2 SEC games. Well, this schedule was so difficult, it's hard to find wins in there. And that's why I think that's what's really kind of created this apathy with a lot of Mississippi State fans is they feel like the team's going to be better, but they're probably going to win 4 games, maybe 5. And that's the frustrating part of it, is they could be much better, but is that really going to move the needle?
Yeah.
That's what you're dealing with here. And how are recruits going to react to that? Are they going to take the coach's word for it, trust the process, and be okay with possibly 4 and 6 if the team is competitive? I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that. I think if you go 4 and 8 and you find a way to, I mean, 4 and 8 means you beat either Arizona State or you won an SEC game. Either one, I would hate to go 0 and 8 again in the SEC, but if that includes a win over Arizona State, who should still be a pretty good team this year, assuming Arizona State doesn't collapse, then
Wouldn't you trade off that game for an SEC win?
Yes.
Because
if you told me that they're going to go 4 and 8 and it's either 4 and 0 in the non-conference, because then you lose 8 straight, that would be really painful to go through.
yeah,
So if my other option is you lose to Arizona State, but you beat Arkansas, I'd rather do that.
yeah, because it's also later in the year when you get that win.
Yeah,
And Mississippi State, outside of the whatever game it was late in the year, outside of that game,
UMass.
just UMass.
Yeah.
State was in a tailspin last year.
It was no fun. It was just
every week is just like you're getting your teeth kicked in, and
they lose 6 in a row, then 4 in a row, I think is what happened.
Something like that.
But that's the point. Like, you lose 6 in a row and you lose 4 in a row, you have that moment, at least in the middle there, where for one Saturday you could kind of enjoy it. if you lose 8 games in a row, that's really tough to go through. So yeah, I would much rather if 4-8 is the answer, I would much rather beat a team like Arkansas or somebody else in the SEC than go because if I'm 4-0, you and I are both going to be doing podcasts and talking, and we're like, okay, this team is probably going to go to a bowl. They figured it out. They're going to be
Yes.
okay. And then you lose
People are going to completely ignore the fact that this schedule is looming in SEC play. They'll be too excited because you'll be 4-0, and then one of those wins would have been against Arizona State.
Right.
And just like that, people have talked themselves into this team winning 7 or 8 games or something. And so that's what you really need to happen. You desperately need this team to win the first 4 games. Desperately need that.
Yeah.
And then from there, can you find 2 wins?
And you got to feel like if they start out 4-0, Robbie, they'll have the confidence to win another game or 2.
Well, that's what I was on. I was on with Matt Moscano today in Baton Rouge, and he was just kind of asking me about the schedule and what I foresaw. And I don't know if I've given my official prediction on here yet, but 4 wins is kind of where I'm leaning right now.
Right.
But if they're 4-0, it's like I told him, like if they beat Arizona State and they're sitting there at 4-0, and you got a Tennessee team in there that who knows what's going to be their deal at quarterback.
Right.
And you got Arkansas in there, who knows what's going to happen to them, and Missouri, who's quite frankly just doesn't really scare you, even though they beat State last year. You got Ole Miss at home. I mean, there's the possibility of 2 wins in there. Like you can't convince me otherwise that State has started 4-0 and has picked up some momentum and has gotten some confidence, and they can't find 2 wins in there somewhere. I'm not saying they're going to beat Georgia or Texas or anybody like that, but there isn't anybody else in there that's unbeatable.
Right. Georgia, Texas, probably not. The rest of them are at least there's a reasonable probability that there's an upset. I mean, it may only be 10%, but that's better than what it was last year. Last year, those games were like 1%, maybe less than 1% that you had a chance to win. So,
I don't know how many teams the rest of the way, whether they go to 16 teams or whatever in the playoff, how many teams are going to be able to say that they played 3 playoff teams on the road last year?
I don't have my helmet schedule, but like right off the top of my head, especially on the road, right, or at home, I guess.
Well, I'm just talking about last year.
Last year? Oh.
I'm thinking about the schedule last year.
Yeah, nobody.
They played 3 playoff teams, I believe. Texas, Tennessee, and Georgia.
4. Arizona State.
They played 4, and Ole Miss should have been a playoff team.
Should have been a playoff team.
They essentially played 5 of their games against playoff teams.
Yeah.
I mean, that's brutal, man. I don't know who did what to Greg Sankey or whoever's making the schedule.
Yeah.
But please don't do that again.
Yes, we would appreciate if you would just be a little more considerate next time. All right. Robbie and I will be back in the studio tomorrow. We'll be heading home from SEC Media Day, so we will put together a podcast for you. I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about, to be honest with you, but we will talk about something.
We'll figure it out.
We always do. Guys, thanks for tuning in tonight. Always appreciate you. Talk to you again tomorrow. For Robbie Faulk, I'm Brian Hadad. Thanks for listening to Thunder and Lightning here on Super Talk, Mississippi.